Welcome to the latest series of Hotel Tech Unwrapped, brought to you by IMS Connect. In this series, we're talking to some of the brightest technology companies in the industry, sharing their insight on how to master the hotel tech ecosystem. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Jason Noronha. Jason is the founder and CEO of D3X. Welcome to the show, Jason. Tell us about your business and the problems you solve in the hospitality industry.
Thanks for having me, Dennis. D3X is a customer service AI agent that automates guest communication for hotels. So, what we do is we take all of the inbound communication coming to a hotel, whether it's through the website or Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, SMS, and email, phone, and we process it through our AI agent, which then in turn connects to the underlying ecosystem. So, it would connect to the PMS, the CRM, housekeeping system, and also kind of combine information from a static knowledge base, which contains information about the property, and it would combine all of that together, apply a nice personality layer over the information, and then reply back to the guest in a few seconds.
Yeah, that's really cool and solves a major challenge, I think, with the fragmented tech stack. And just to position D3X, it's a global business, it's a software business. Can you talk to us about maybe how many countries you work in, how many clients you serve currently?
Yeah, we got a couple of hundred hotels online on our platform at this point in time. We are a global business just purely because it's software and it doesn't matter which country people are operating in. So when we initially launched as a startup a couple of years ago, we had people sign up from Mexico, Argentina, Australia, Canada, Ireland, America. So we didn't really pay too much attention as to where people were coming from. We just wanted to understand what kind of use case they were serving and what kind of underlying systems they were using so that we could ensure that our agent was able to handle their customer queries accurately and capably. So that's roughly what we've looked at. But what we also did was we're only built for the hospitality industry, specifically hotels, hotels, hostels, uh, service apartments. So we only focus on those use cases. So we worry about booking intent, booking modification, booking cancellation, lost and found, invoice, etc., etc., etc. We don't worry about like e-commerce and selling surfboards or renting any equipment and stuff like that. So we just verticalized on hospitality so we can hyper focus on this use case.
Yeah, very cool. And you guys have a really cool origin story. I was listening to your conversation with Matt in Muse, and it was just really interesting, the background. Do you want to touch on that a little bit for context for our audience?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So my background, I started off as a financial services consultant. I hated my job. I quit my job and started traveling the world. I worked for a consulting company in Singapore, but then I volunteered in Africa, volunteered in South America, and went back home to India, which is the place where I'm from. And I realized there was no backpacker hostel around, so I went down the road and rented a small building which eventually became a backpacker hostel with 4 rooms. And guest number 7 was Laura, who's now my wife. We've been together for 15 years. So that's how we kind of got into hospitality with 4 rooms. And then that business grew. We had 5 locations, 3 coffee shops, 2 bars, around 70 employees before we moved to New York. And that's when we realized we had to kind of build some software to make our business work. And that kind of brought us into the software industry. So we ended up eventually building a property management system for backpacker hostels. Eventually, at some stage, we were serving around 1,200 hostels across the world before the company was taken over by Hostel World. And that's kind of how my relationship with Ireland came about in the first place. And we decided to start another company when this chat GPT moment happened. And we said, we understand operations and we understand the PMS because we built one. Let's take AI and let's like connect the pieces together and build automation software. And we were fortunate enough to meet Stay City Group in the early days. Paulo took a chance with us and kind of gave us a shot. And yeah, so we kind of started our AI journey, trying to understand what did customers want, how were they trying to connect with hotels. What could AI do? What could AI not do? And we kind of built our product around those use cases.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, so it's that's where our paths then cross. So obviously, State City and Paolo are a common contact for us, and you guys are one of the first kind of true AI native companies I heard about in hospitality tech. And obviously this is all very very new. But what does AI native mean? How does D3X differentiate, say, from, for example, from a chatbot that we see on a website these days?
So I think the website chatbots have been around for a while at this point in time. Uh, and the concept was you have a little bubble on your website and people can chat with someone if they have any questions from your website. So kind of like a communication platform, because before people make a booking, they usually have these last minute objections. That's what it's called in the sales world. And you want to kind of clarify all those last minute doubts and solve their problems so that they can make a booking. And also, research shows that if you respond to those last minute objections within 30 seconds, you can drive conversion by 3 to 4x. So it's quite valuable to reply to customers. They might just want to know something like, can I park my car? Can I bring my dog along? And if you reply to that question, you're going to kind of help them make that booking. And originally, it was humans replying to those questions. And it's quite difficult to reply to people within 30 seconds, especially if they message you at 2 in the morning, which happens a lot of times. So that was the obvious use case to use AI for it. And most of the chatbot companies kind of just said, okay, we've got this interface with the customer. Let's bring an LLM in there. LLM stands for large language model, which is what ChatGPT is. And you connect ChatGPT to the guest chat, and the AI starts replying to the guest. And that was the early use case for AI. And I think that's kind of where it started off. But what we figured out when we started the company was we could take the same LLM and take the guest message and convert the guest message into an API. And what that means is the guest says, I'm arriving tomorrow for 2 nights and I want the cheapest room. So we could actually take that entire sentence and convert that into an API, which we could then go to the property management system, fetch rates and availability, and go back to the guest. And so this is roughly where our company started 3 years ago when we realized that this technology was ready for prime time.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I think it really solves a very difficult challenge for hotels and hotel brands in terms of the the size and complexity of the tech stack, and then it's connecting different parts of the tech stack and obviously providing context and knowledge, etc., so that the right action or the right workflow can take place. So it's very, very interesting. To me, when I first heard about D3X, I kind of positioned it in my head as like a Zapier for hotel operations, but with like a conversational interface. Is that accurate, do you think, in terms of a description or analogy?
I would say partly yes and partly no.
Hmm.
Zapier, yes, because we are a middle layer. So we'd be that in between layer between the customer and the systems. So we'd be connecting everything to everything. That would be our goal.
Yeah.
Having said that, when I think of Zapier, I think of it as incredibly complex to configure and set up. And you need to go and get technical and figure out what the error codes are. And we don't have any of that because, again, we only serve hotels. So ideally, we'd have a drop down saying, automate this via API. And you click on automate via API and it just does it. It's magic. And so we think of our rules as set and forget. So you just set it and you forget it and it just goes on forever. And you can kind of log in and audit the AI whenever you wish to. And maybe you wish to tweak a few things or change a few things. And that's when you like look at the settings. But ideally, you don't want to be tinkering around too much. And the AI should just do that for you.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. And in terms of then your business model, so you have to build those integrations, you have to build those connections, I presume, for the hotel brand in the tech stack. How complex is that? I mean, how advanced has the hotel, say, technology industry come in terms of APIs, integrations? How easy is that for you to achieve? Or do you find that that's one of the limiting factors in terms of how quickly your business can scale or how quickly you can roll out a solution for a hotel brand?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a limiting factor. How quickly we can do it depends on what kind of quality you want. So you can technically do everything very quickly right now because you can just provide API documents to the AI and just say, build me an integration. But do you trust it? And
Mhm.
what about the security concerns? What happens with those edge cases? What happens when there are two Mr. Smiths staying at the hotel? Do we accidentally leak one Mr. Smith's information to the other Mr. Smith? So those kinds of things like need time and effort and a lot of review to ensure that we are handling data properly. And another thing that we also need to satisfy is the people that we're connecting to. We many times have to kind of get certified by them. So we connect to
Yeah.
Opera for the PMS, and they'd want to certify our integration to ensure that it matches all of their security concerns. So I think things are getting much quicker for sure because AI is helping build those integrations, but we still have some kind of trust barrier that we need to cross to ensure that you're comfortable with connecting certain
Mm.
systems to certain systems. And I think that varies based on the size of the enterprise. So if you're a small hotel with 10 rooms, you probably can move a lot faster than a big hotel chain with 10,000 rooms, because that's when the security concerns and the cost of error becomes quite substantial.
Yeah, understood. And I think you've touched on something super important, which is security. And I suppose how you build the solution with the right, say, guardrails and protections in terms of data. So, for example, if I'm a competing hotel brand, can I stay in a hotel that has a D3X like WhatsApp concierge and ask it, what's the occupancy tonight? You know, what's the average room rate? Who's next door, etc. Right. So, how do you think about that? How do you build a solution that I suppose, has the right level of functionality to deliver value for both the guest and operations, but then also has the kind of control barriers in place to make sure that key data is protected, you know?
That's something we think about a lot because we work with some larger organizations. So we usually err on the side of like kind of caution, because I think all it takes is one incident to destroy your reputation. And so that would be something that we're thinking about. So we do want to go fast, but not too fast. And what we're looking at internally is that a human has to be responsible for everything that goes out. So even though AI might be writing your code, you need a human to review it and a human to raise their hand up and say, I take responsibility and ownership for that. And I think the same probably holds true in the hotel operating world as well. You can get AI to do certain tasks. You can get AI to probably reply to guests and tell them what time's check in, can I get breakfast, all of that stuff. But when you want a refund to be issued, you probably want someone on the team to raise their hand and say, I approve that refund, because otherwise you might have the situation where the AI is going rogue. There's a bug in the system. It's refunding reservations for some reason. Nobody knows why, and probably fixable, but you don't have anyone responsible for that error right now. And so I think it's important to have some human be responsible for the AI system because the AI can't take ownership.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. And in terms of me as a guest, how do I then interact? Is it WhatsApp concierge? Is there other means of having a conversation?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So since it's an AI application layer, it doesn't care where the guest is coming from. So the guest could be messaging on WhatsApp. The guest doesn't see the AI layer. The guest just gets these instant responses. Although, according to the EU, we have to disclose that it's an AI replying to the guest. So that would be a disclaimer that you would include upfront. But then the guest would just see normal responses, and they might even be surprised that they're getting such quick responses
Hmm.
with contextual information about their reservation and their stay and their profile.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. And then, I mean, WhatsApp, I was talking to a company recently that we done an integration with for a hotel brand, and they offer a full, guest, digital guest, but employee guest kind of journey, right? And they provide multiple options up front to the guest in terms of how they can communicate or how they want to communicate with the hotel brand, right? And they're seeing 80% adoption of WhatsApp, right? And then the rest is email and other chat platforms, but it's very interesting. I mean, it's really important to meet the guest where they live, and I think that whole WhatsApp concierge is the place to be for hotel brands. So it's a very interesting area. And a typical workflow then. So I'm a guest in a hotel, and I have already interacted, so I'm aware that WhatsApp is available for me as a means of communication. What's a typical request that a guest might make, and then how does that flow then through the tech stack?
It depends. So the thing is, it depends on where you are in the guest journey. Have you already booked? Are you in-house? Are you pre-arrival? So WhatsApp has a way, like quite a few entry points. What Google's doing right now, for example, is they've got a little WhatsApp button on your hotel profile. So the guest can kind of just click the WhatsApp button when they search for the hotel. And the WhatsApp button actually ranks above booking.com and Expedia. And the WhatsApp button actually has two buttons. So it's got a circular button and a logo. So I think that's a very valuable tool to hotels to just kind of enable guests to show up in the WhatsApp chat, ask their questions, talk about rates and availability, and then funnel them from WhatsApp directly to the booking engine, effectively reducing the commission you're spending on the OTA. So that's one very valuable, I think, pathway to a booking journey. And so the guest could be messaging from there, in which case it's an anonymous guest, potentially. They don't have a reservation, they are not in-house. And so the AI would hopefully try and like satisfy their questions, but also prompt them and push them towards making a booking direct. So that would be one element. The other element might be the guest is in-house. They might scan a QR code on the wall, and they start messaging. At this point in time, the AI kind of searches for the phone number in the PMS and figures out that they're in-house, which room are they in, and maybe they have a request, like they want a towel or some kind of some stuff delivered to their room, at which stage the AI can connect to the task management system and place orders on their behalf to deliver stuff to the room.
Because yeah, very interesting. And is that whole idea of you're thinking about how the guest or the individual operates day to day. So when we think about that on the technology side, it's like, what does everyone have in their home? They've got fiber-based internet, which is fast. They've got good Wi-Fi coverage everywhere. They have a smart TV with content apps, usually, and then they also like to cast from their personal device to the TV screen, right? And we try to bring that into a hospitality setting, make it very easy to use, very intuitive, and obviously safe from a data perspective. But it's exactly the same principles. You're trying to deliver what the individual is used to in their daily lives and removing as many layers of friction as possible to help enhance the guest stay. So yeah, it's super, super interesting area. And I do think if I was starting a hospitality tech business in the morning, I would probably think about the type of business that you are building, because I really see that fragmented tech stack as a major challenge. And then, there's apps and widgets and solutions for everything. And in some ways, it's better to be modular in your tech stack, to have a specialist in a different area. But how do you think about that? I mean, do you see the tech stack actually becoming more fragmented moving forward? Or do you see this kind of these bigger companies just kind of taking over the whole tech stack end to end? How do you see the future when you think about that?
I think the world always oscillates between bundled and unbundled in
Okay.
general. So
Hmm.
like you just kind of go in one direction, you go too far, and then you kind of come back in the opposite direction. And for hospitality tech, I think we went too far in terms of being unbundled and being fragmented. And things are beginning to swing in the opposite direction right now, where people are like, let's pull back a little bit. Let's kind of go all in one again. And then you get too far in the all in one space, and you're like, this is too like suffocating. I can't, it doesn't do things well enough. And you kind of go back in the opposite direction. So I think it depends on the type of hotel you are. And you might want to be at a different point in terms of unbundled and bundled. So in terms of
Yeah.
all in one, if you're a smaller property, I might go for all in one because you don't have such sophisticated needs. But if you're a larger property, I would probably kind of step back and say, what's important to me? So let's say you're a very large hotel chain processing millions of dollars in payments. you probably want to run your own payment infrastructure. So you don't want to kind of pay people a bigger commission than necessary because you'll just save a lot of money by managing your own payments. So you might want to unbundle payments out of your tech stack, for example. And so that might be the way to look at it. So I think the bigger you are, the more tendency there is to kind of be bespoke and say, I'm going to pick this piece and that piece and that piece, and I'm going to connect all of them together. Whereas if you're smaller, you don't necessarily have the resources to connect everything together. So you might just say, it's too much effort, too much testing, too
Mm.
much integration costs involved. So I'm just going to kind of go for this all-in-one approach. But what's happening with AI right now, and what's going to be quite interesting, is the ability for smaller properties to kind of build their own software on the fly. So kind of
Yes.
build their own integrations on the fly with this kind of Zapier like idea, except you have none of the UI and the configuration and any of that. You're just chatting with ChatGPT and you're just like, hey, connect my PMS to this Excel file that I have on my desktop because that's how I run housekeeping. And the AI is going to connect that for you. And you probably like, I mean, if you're a small property with 10 rooms, you might just be able to get away with it. And it could be
Mm.
quite interesting because we are getting into the age of, I think, disposable software. So you can just kind of spin up some software now, use it for 10 minutes and just throw it away and not care about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, that is very, very interesting for sure. And even, I see in my own daily life, I use Replit quite a bit. And it's a conversational AI interface that can build applications for you, Um, and one of the things I always find interesting when I talk to people like you is like, to really sort of bring it back to the day-to-day experiences, what AI kind of tools or apps do you use in your personal life day to day? Even if there's two or three there that you find exceptionally useful and the reasons why, I think that's super useful for our audience as well.
Oh, for me, I think I'm a kind of almost a one app kind of person at this point in time. I'm like all in on OpenAI and ChatGPT. But at the same time, like as part of my job, I do try a lot of applications. So I I do use a bunch of applications actually. Now that I think of it, my CRM is completely AI. So I just chat with my CRM in the morning and say, which clients do I need to talk to today? And it analyzes all my emails, analyzes our entire customer base, and then kind of brings the two together. It kind of just connects all of that and says, you need to talk to these 10 people today. So that's how I operate on a daily basis. But in my
Hmm.
personal life, I just mostly use ChatGPT because I've got kids and I really like voice mode. So they're
Yeah.
asking me 1,000 questions. I don't have the answers to those questions, and we put on voice mode, and it's a really nice tool for us to like kind of
Yeah.
take us through the day. So that's what I like. But in my professional life, I do use a lot of tools. I have to confess.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, so I mean, the ChatGPT voice transcription I find is incredibly accurate. And really improves how I speak. So I talk into it. It's much longer. There's lots of filler. There's gaps, right? And it just presents it perfectly as this question or this prompt. So I do find that super useful. I have been using Claude a lot as well in personal, and then in business we've built like an MCP server that can access our different systems, and then you've got the Claude chat interface to kind of, I can say, okay, we're doing a project or there's a project complete, just say Stay City, for example, because we've already mentioned them. How is the Wi-Fi network performing? And this will give me a full readout of how the network is performing, and it's just super useful. But yeah, there's just so much out there. I found Whisper Flow very useful for voice, again, voice to text. So yeah, it's just, I suppose there's so much going on, and then there's so many new apps and new ideas and new concepts. I think that's always a challenge for people to keep up with.
Absolutely. It's changing so fast. And actually, now that we're talking about this, I remembered my 7-year-old actually built a game website with Cursor. So for people saying like this is really hard to wrap my head around, I think you just have to do it. Because if a 7-year-old can do it, you can probably do it as well. It's just kind of the mindset, and you have to kind of overcome that block, that mental block to say, I'm gonna give this a shot, and it's gonna work out.
Yeah, that's really cool. And for example, I just looking at my phone to see there's quite a few, but Um, I have to say, Replit, one of the things I built was just by chatting to it was this a meditation app, you know. So it has this like points system. So every minute of meditation is like 10 points. So
Yep.
10 minutes is 100 points, and your target is 100 points every day. And it has this relaxation music. It has a timer. It has a calendar. It can tell you like your points performance over the month, over the week, etc. You know, and that was literally within an hour of just chatting in Replit. It built this web app, and something I actually use every day, you know. So it is crazy the possibilities that are there now, you know. And when you think about, say, the future here, I mean, you know, it's like we're definitely not going back to the old world, right? So I think AI is just going to play a bigger and bigger role in organizations. And, you know, I see it in our business. You don't really have a choice, because if all of your competitors are using the technology, you know, they're advancing, you really have to do the same to keep up and stay ahead. But what do you think in terms of looking ahead in a hotel context, you know, the type of system and platform that you're building? What's next for D3X, and what's exciting you as you look ahead for the next 12 or 24 months?
Well, we're just trying to like work from first principles to say, okay, what is a hotel? So obviously, a hotel is a bed. It's a place for people to sleep, experience, uh, kind of dive into a new city. So those kinds of things don't get replaced by AI. So the core product is the core product. You have a physical place. You have to kind of build it out. Think about the next 25 years. AI is not going to travel for you. You're going to have to travel yourself. Um, but what happens around that experience is what's changing. So we can kind of start attempting to reach for the holy grail when it comes to personalization and kind of scaling out that personalization. And so AI will be able to do that on behalf of hoteliers and kind of make people's lives a lot easier and a lot more frictionless. So I think that's what's going to change. So the good news is like the core product doesn't change, but the bad news is I think expectations are changing. So
Hmm.
people are going to expect more from hotels in terms of service, and as guests begin to get their own AI agents, they're going to do a lot more with AI agents. So a good example would be some guy got his hand on an AI agent and told his AI to call all of the hotels in Stockholm and ask them if they had a sauna, and then tell him which hotel had the best sauna. So now you got this AI agent calling every single hotel in Stockholm. On the surface, it's quite pointless and quite a waste of like computing power. But this is where the world is going. You're going to get a lot of AI agents inquiring, or kind of the guest journey is going to change a little bit because the consumers are going to have AI agents. And that kind of goes back to a point that you brought up earlier in this conversation where you said the guests expect their Wi-Fi to work. They expect their phone to cast to the television. They expect everything at home to work at the hotel. And I think what we see is consumer behavior moves quicker than enterprise behavior. So,
Yeah.
in other words, the individuals move quicker than the businesses. So, all the Chat GPT users are going to have agents, and then the hotels are going to find themselves scrambling, saying, "Oh my God, I just got 100 phone calls today from AI agents, and I had to pick up the phone 100 times and talk to them. And it's so pointless. It's so frustrating. I don't want to do this. It's like the teacher saying I have to correct 100 Chat GPT essays today.
Mm.
My life is meaningless because why am I grading an AI essay, right? So I think that's where that's the place hotels are going to find themselves. So they're going to have to kind of see the writing on the wall to a certain extent. And you asked me what's happening in the future. So in the future, in 5 years from now, I think AI agents are going to make bookings for us. So the hotels have to see that this is going to change. So just like when the internet came about and people had to move from fax bookings to like online bookings, we're now going to have to move from online bookings to AI agent bookings. And we don't know what that means right now. but we're going to have to prepare ourselves for that move, and the move is coming. And the people who move first might have a momentary benefit,
Hmm.
or maybe that benefit might be lasting as well. So if you think about SEO and the hotels who moved first on SEO, did they have a lasting benefit? Probably. And when you
Hmm.
think about like Instagram and TikTok showing up as like social media channels for originating bookings, if you kind of got a following initially, did you keep that following? Potentially, yeah. It was definitely easier to kind of keep the momentum if you started early. And I see AI as the same kind of trajectory all over again, where we've got a new medium opening up, a new channel for distribution, a new method for guest journey and guest communication, and that's like blue ocean right now, and there's an opportunity to be had.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, there's huge opportunities. I mean, one of the things we're working on together at the moment is this idea that if a guest is in a hotel room and they have an issue with their Wi-Fi or their smart TV or their content apps or their casting, that they can use the WhatsApp concierge to raise that problem. And so just chatting through that, it's like we can update the knowledge base so that the LLM can provide some useful prompts and information in real time, 24/7. So that's first of all box ticked, because as a guest, that's like a super experience. I have response here, 24 hours a day. And if I get to the end of that process and I still haven't resolved my problem, it can open a ticket on our support desk. We can reply to the ticket from our CRM, so it doesn't change on our employee side what our workflow is, right? And then obviously that goes back to the guest in WhatsApp as well. So it's like, yeah, we've logged in, we found a problem, we have fixed it. Please try again and let us know if you have a problem moving forward, right? And there's huge, I mean, massive potential in that alone, right? Because the type of services that we provide, if you look across the industry, um, everyone is optimized for delivery of new projects and for dealing with priority one tickets, right? So priority one tickets are full outage or say an issue affecting say more than 10 hotel guests or 10 hotel users, right? Very few companies are optimized for dealing with one TV not working, one Chromecast not working, right? One Wi-Fi access point not working. And this is where this integration, I believe, has huge potential, because not only can we get to that in real time, but we can fix it before the guest actually leaves, or more importantly, leaves a review, which can impact your online reputation. So we have some really data driven customers who where we have to deliver an experience all the time above 9 for the guests, right? And if you don't have a big enough data set and one guest has a poor experience, then they give a 0, well, then that really impacts on the average score. So, I mean, for us, that's where we're hugely excited to work with you guys. And again, I think that really brings to life the value of what you're doing, because it's really connecting. And I think from a guest point of view, in that case, they don't even know we exist. They don't know that IMS Connect are actually in the chain at all. They see this as the hotel brand responding in real time. They see this as the hotel brand solving the problem. And from an experience point of view and from a brand reputation, that has huge potential. So I don't know if I've missed anything, Jason, in that workflow, right? But
I've seen some hotels deal with problems where reception actually attaches a PDF file and sends it to the guest, where they're just like, oh, the microwave's not working. Here's the manual. And which guest is kind of going to go read a manual to
yeah,
fix their microwave or whatever it might be, right? So I think
yeah,
the L1 of support there is to kind of just get all of the details from the experts, because these, like, I'll confess, I just can't operate hotel TVs. Like it's like the number one thing, like I just cannot do. Hotel TVs like are the hardest thing to operate. Uh, but I think it definitely helps, like to say, okay, have you tried doing this? Have you tried casting it that way? You need to click this function on the TV, and so you can kind of provide that support. But at the end of the day, if it still doesn't work, there's no way reception is going to help you. They they just can't. Like, they've just got, like, hundreds of customers to deal with, and so I think that's where the AI can kind of just summarize all of that stuff and try and connect the real world with, like, the online world, so to speak. Because,
yeah,
yeah, I don't think the AI is gonna fix televisions anytime soon. So, yeah, you're gonna have to
yeah.
do that, Dennis. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was it was interesting because I was at a conference recently and it was a really big hotel, really big conference area, as in the actual exhibition hall was like 4 stories high, just open, and there was it was like an atrium. And I had, a, another tech company come over and they were like, are you guys not worried about AI and what it's going to do to your business? And I'm like, no, I'm actually very excited about AI and what it can do for our business. He's like, well, why would you be needed in 5 years' time? And I was like, you see this access point up here? It's like 20 feet in the air and it's installed in a certain angle in a certain way. I was like, there's no robots or AI coming to install that access point, right? That's from years of experience. And I said, look around at the same level. There's like 20 access points in the atrium, right? All installed purposely in a specific location, pointing in a specific direction and performing a specific function, right? So I was like, are you concerned about AI taking that job from us? And he was like, okay, I understand. So, for us, we're just really excited and we see huge potential and opportunities, but, yeah, it's a super interesting area, and I think it's really important that we try and simplify it for hoteliers because there is, as we mentioned earlier, so much noise, right? And then in the tech stack itself, it's quite complex, the whole ecosystem. Is there anything, if we were to try and summarize, if you were a hotelier, obviously that's where you came from, so it's a really strong part of your origin story and your business model. How would you think about, is there principles that you would apply if you were a hotelier making technology investment? Because I think this is a really challenging area for hoteliers at the moment.
I would say like pilot stuff quickly. So
Yeah.
that's the difference between like physical build out and software. So if you build a bathroom, that bathroom's going to be there for 25 years. You better get the bathroom right because
Hmm.
the door opens in the wrong direction and it blocks the shower. You're going to have a lot of trouble. But that's not the case with AI software. As we've said, like we're getting to this era where software can be built quite quickly. So you have to decide if that's going to work for your business. And the costs of software are dropping drastically with this kind of AI stuff happening. So I suspect for a couple of €100, you could easily run a pilot with AI and you get your organization down the learning curve. So you kind of open a few kind of doors, you try and understand where the real roadblocks are, where the rubber hits the road in terms of where that software is failing in a physical installation. And you can gather all of that data and all of that information within 60 days with a pilot. So I would encourage people to actually try it out for themselves so that they can begin to feel what it's capable of doing and what it's not capable of doing, because it's not magic sauce, but at the same time it's not nothing. So
Yeah.
it's somewhere in between, and it's only going to get more powerful over time. So I think there's definitely some value in beginning to upskill the organization to learn what the software is capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's yeah, absolutely. It's run a pilot project, try before you buy, basically. And yeah, I think the most innovative hospitality brands we're working with at the moment, they always have like an incubation area where they're creating like the perfect room or the sample room, and they're thinking about, okay, we've got X amount of rooms in pipeline and they are what they are, but for what's coming next year and moving forward, let's keep innovating and trying to make that better. So, absolutely. And it's a really, low cost way of avoiding a very high cost mistake, so it's very interesting. Is there anything else, I suppose, that you think is important that we maybe haven't discussed today, or even any points that we've covered that you think need to be doubled down on as we wrap up?
I think it's broadly change management as well, because like the AI wave is coming in and you kind of have to upskill your workforce to ensure that everyone's aware of it. But then you also need to manage people's fears that the like AI is going to show up and everyone's going to get fired and this hotel is going to run with zero people in it. And so that's what leaders have to kind of keep in mind, that they need to bring their staff along with them for that journey. And so I think just managing that change, managing your people, upskilling your team, and just planning for the next, for the wave that's gonna like unfold over the next couple of years.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. And like as you say, there is people still need we still need people here to make this a success, and people have emotions, and that change management piece is really important, as you say. And I see that in our own business. It's how we change the mindset from is this coming from my job actually to actually how can I leverage this to do so much more and learn so much more, etc. So yeah,
Because
listen, it's been a
yeah,
go ahead, sorry.
there's been a lot of talk about like AI getting rid of all of these jobs.
Mm.
And I think more and more people are beginning to lean towards nope, it's going to unlock productivity, but it's not going to get rid of jobs. And so the thought process there is like jobs consist of multiple tasks, and AI might automate away some of the tasks, but technically speaking, like it will unlock more tasks, so more work can be done. And so we're just going to kind of unlock the economy by opening up more tasks and automating away some tasks, but the fundamental job will not disappear. And I've heard a lot of analogies there. Uh,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I was talking to a guy recently, and he said, when I bought my automatic or robotic lawnmower, it didn't mean I was sitting inside on my backside looking out the window at the robot cutting the lawn. There was other stuff to be done, and it was always important stuff, but it just never got done because I
yeah,
was outside cutting the lawn. So
yeah,
it's just yeah, I think it's just being open, isn't it? It's just being having an open mind, and where there's change and where there's, I suppose, where there's a threat, there's always an opportunity. Anytime there's change and there's risk, there's always huge opportunity as well. So it's just to keep both, I think, in balance, in your head. So listen, it was really useful. I really enjoyed today's conversation. I think our network are going to really benefit from listening to this. You guys are doing some amazing stuff. You also have a podcast called AI Lobby Talk, so I would encourage people to go and listen there. So you've already spoken to Paolo in Say City and Mike in Citizen M, and there's huge learnings in those conversations. I'd say keep doing what you're doing. We're really looking forward to working with you guys over the next few years. And obviously, when you're back in Ireland, we catch up for maybe lunch or a coffee. And yeah, look forward to staying connected and seeing your journey pan out. So thanks a million for today.
thank you for having me, Dennis. I really enjoyed chatting with you. And I look forward to meeting you in person in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, super. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks again to Jason for joining us on today's show. We will share useful links in the show notes. One of these will be Jason's own podcast, AI Lobby Talk. We encourage everyone to go and listen to the conversations he's having there. We will also share a link to the IMS Connect Guest Technology Maturity Assessment. This is an ongoing project to help you benchmark where your guest experience is at currently and provide a roadmap for future investment. So we look forward to seeing you again soon, and thanks for watching today.